this is just gonna be the Ellen you're seeing today. Extra large shirt, hair in a ponytail because she hasn't showered in a while. Yes, welcome to my wrap-up videos. Finally, I don't know why these are always so late, but they are. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep trying to work on it. We'll see. This is as you have read in the title, this is my July reading wrap-up. I keep always forgetting what month it is. The books that I read in July, I will talk about them. And I, again, did not read as many books as I wanted to read this month. I read 5 books. Okay, so these are the books I read. There is one more. I just don't have the physical copy of it. So the first book I read was I Can Only Imagine. And this was the nonfiction book that I read this month. So in case you don't know, and this is your first time here, my goal this year was to read 1 nonfiction book a month. And so this was my nonfiction pick this month. And I really enjoyed this book. I watched this movie in March, I believe. This came out in the theaters in either March or February, around there. And I watched it in theaters and I absolutely loved it. So when I saw that there was a book available for it, I was like, yes, let me also read the book. So if you don't remember, this book and movie is about the person who wrote the song I Can Only Imagine, which is one of the biggest songs in the Christian music category. It's about his life, how he wrote this song. His life is so fascinating and so heartbreaking. And what I loved so much about this book was you kind of saw how much the movie is different from what actually happened. Because I understand with the movie, especially with I want to say an hour 45-minute movie, you can't really fit everything into it, so you have to take some things out. But thankfully with the book, you definitely could get the whole story, the whole picture, everything you missed, and learn a bunch more, and it went a little bit deeper too. So I really enjoyed that. And this book was written by Bart Millard, the guy who wrote the song, the guy who sings the song, the guy whose life this is about. He wrote it in such a way that was very uplifting and powerful at the same time, rather than just being a sad story about his abusive childhood. And also, this is actually a very short book. This was less than 200 pages. I want to say it was around 170 something pages, and I was just so astonished at how much emotion he was able to put into such a short book, and also how much information he was able to put into such a short book. I will say I did want the book to be longer because I was enjoying it so much, because if you liked the movie, you will for sure like the book. It definitely gives a lot more information, and yeah, I really enjoyed this book, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is actually another nonfiction book, and that is This Is the Story of a Happy Marriage by Ann Patchett. I really love this cover. This is a great cover. I have heard things about Ann Patchett, but I'd never read a single book by her, so I decided to pick this one up. Not really realizing that it was a nonfiction book, but it's a nonfiction book. It's basically a collection of articles that Ann Patchett has written in the early 2000s. For a bunch of different magazine articles, but they're all about her life. But the thing is, I was bored as hell reading this book. So bored. The writing is very simple and elegant, but that didn't really keep me engaged, I guess. I think that's maybe what made it boring, because it was very detailed and sharp writing, but just also elegant, and it just, I don't know, it was interesting. It was weird. Also, this was not in chronological order. I guess I like nonfiction books to be in chronological order. I guess that's what it is, because most of the time when books are not in chronological order, I tend to not like them. This was just so all over the place. I had no idea where we were. I mean, there were some stories that were interesting, but most of them could not keep my attention. I really liked the story about the nun. I wasn't really a fan of this, but I do want to give her fiction books a try. Maybe it's just her nonfiction I don't like. So hopefully I will like her fiction stories, because I think her books are considered modern classics. Anyway, so yeah, I gave this 2.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was my book of the month pick of the month, and that was Ghosted by Rosie Walsh. Can I just say, for book of the month, July had amazing picks. I wanted every single book that was an option for July. I did end up choosing 2 though. I just didn't get a chance to read the other July pick that I chose. But I did read this one, and this is kind of like a mystery romance. So if you don't know what the term ghosted means, basically it means when you text someone but they never text you back, that's them ghosting you. They like never try and contact you again after you've tried contacting them. That's ghosting. And so this girl, what's her name again? Sarah. Sarah meets Eddie and they have a wonderful 7 days together, and it's like instant love connection. And usually I'm not a fan of insta love, but like this worked somehow. But then he has to like go on a trip, but she never hears from him again, and she's kind of got this gut feeling that something's wrong. There is a reason that Eddie is not getting back to her, and it's about a secret. And I have to say, I was shocked by the reveal. It was just kind of like an emotional thrill ride at the same time. Like I felt like I was on a roller coaster of emotions. Just whew, crazy. Just because like there were so many twists that it got a little bit ridiculous. I saw one of the twists coming about like 4 chapters before it happened, so it wasn't too far in advance I saw the twists, but yeah, no, the twists were great. I just felt like there were too many of them. I did feel like it dragged a little bit in some places, but I still very much enjoyed the storytelling. And I loved it. My favorite part, I think, would have to be the heartbreaking side stories, because they were heartbreaking to read. I also have to say, I have no idea what this cover has to do with the story. It's very pretty, but I don't know what it has to do with the story. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I did very much enjoy this. So far, I think this is my favorite of the Book of the Month picks that I've chosen for this year, so very happy with this one. The next book I read is a very pretty looking book, and that is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. This is a classic. It's also like a gothic horror novel. I have seen the musical live. It was okay live. I watched the movie and I love the movie version of it, so I figured I should also read the book. I also kind of want to start reading classics. Like I'm just really in the mood for classics for some reason. Anyway, and I found this beautiful edition. This edition was weird. Like I think this was like an abridged version because it is shorter than the normal version. There were also like footnotes in this. And when I was showing this to a friend of mine who absolutely loves this book, he was looking through it one day at work and he found the writing of it to be a little weird. So maybe it's just the edition I read, but I'm still going to review the book that I read. And this one I was not liking very much. Okay, let me tell you my thoughts. Keep in mind that it's probably just this edition. Maybe I should read the like normal edition because maybe that one is a lot better. But this edition sucked. Like I said earlier, there were footnotes in this edition, and I felt like they were not needed. I'm sorry. I don't know why the author decided to put footnotes. Oh, okay. So in case you want to know, this translation was by Alexander Teixeira de Matos. It's not a good translation. I think my main issue definitely were the characters. I wanted to shout at the characters. I wanted to shake the characters so much because they were stupid, they were selfish, they just annoyed the hell out of me. There was a part where Christine and Raoul have like a fight because he was an asshole and she runs off, he follows her to her dressing room, and she's in there saying, poor Eric, and he's just like, poor Eric, poor me. I'm the one who's sad over here. Poor me is what you should be saying. And I'm like, you were just an asshole to you. No. And also, how selfish can you be that she's supposed to think about you 24/7? But that was just one example that I'm giving you. But there were like multiple times where I was like, God, people in this book are just so stupid. However, I did very much like the Persian. He had a couple chapters in here that were from his point of view, and those are my favorite chapters. I really enjoyed the Persian. I wish the whole book had been from the Persian's point of view. I don't think this job did a very good book of describing
I don't think this job did a very good book of describing
the surroundings. I felt like I couldn't really picture what was happening or where they were, because I couldn't picture it. I was so confused because I felt like the descriptions didn't match the movie, because I was like, okay, I can picture the movie, but I can't picture what they're describing here. I'm having difficulties. So I think because of that, it made it very confusing what was going on. I still very much enjoy this story, which, by the way, I should probably explain the story. So this takes place in a very famous opera in France. I know it's in France. I can't remember the name of the opera house. Anyway, it's an opera house in France that, and this takes place, I believe, in like the 1800s or the 1700s, somewhere around there. And there is a ghost in the opera. He's known as the opera ghost, and Christine sees him as the angel of music because he has helped her find her voice, but he's also like, you must marry me or love me and no one else. But then Raoul comes into the picture and she remembers him from childhood. They fall in love, and now it's just like this fight between the opera ghost, whose name is Eric. Sorry to ruin that for you, but I realized I said Eric already, so you should probably know. Eric is the opera ghost. What am I saying? Where was I going? I don't remember. So essentially, I love the story, but not the execution. There we go. That's a better phrasing of it. So the execution was horrible. Story's good. I also have to say, this edition, because when I was talking to my friend who read this book and absolutely loves this book, it felt like his edition had way more about Eric. This edition, I knew nothing about Eric's past, aka the opera ghost. They didn't really dive into his past much, so I didn't really know anything about Eric or the opera ghost. I still don't know anything about him at all. So this edition sucks. I gave this 1.5 out of 5 stars. Maybe the real edition is better. And then the last book I read is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Thank God. I have been reading this for 3 months and I finally finished it. There's a lot of reasons why this book took me so long to read. A, it's the longest book in the series. It is almost 900 pages. It is very long. But mainly Umbridge. Umbridge. My least favorite character in any book I have ever read. It was just so frustrating and difficult to read the chapters she was in, which was practically all of them, because she pissed me off so much. So this is the 5th book of the Harry Potter series. It's a wonderful series. It is very well written. So Harry's 5th year at Hogwarts. Oh my goodness. So basically, the world is just out to get him. That's all it is. The wizarding world is out to get him. We go more into the politics and the government of the wizarding world. We learn more about the Ministry of Magic, and we even get into the media, because the media and the Ministry of Magic are all out to, they're all against Harry. They don't believe Harry when he says that Voldemort is back. And so they're trying to convince everyone else in the wizarding world that he's wrong and he's a liar, and anyone who is on his side is a liar with him. And so a lot of people are against him and trying to tear him down. And then, of course, Umbridge, who is part of the Ministry of Magic, she ends up going into Hogwarts and kind of taking over Hogwarts. And it's so frustrating because she is the worst human being in the world. I remember watching the movie for this one, and this is the one movie that is hard for me to watch in the series, just because every time I watch it, I literally just get so angry and my knuckles get white because I just want to punch her in the face. Even reading this, I felt myself getting angry and I had to put it down and just yell at her. As me being me, just yell at her, punch her, and then be okay, let's go back to reading. I just can't stand Umbridge, and I just couldn't stand how everyone was against Harry when Harry was telling the truth. Also, Percy. Oh my god. Percy made me so mad, but so sad for the Weasley family. Percy is one of the brothers in the Weasley family. They have a lot of kids, the Weasleys. And He is like an assistant to Cornelius Fudge, who is the Minister of Magic, who is also evil. I hate him. And Percy chooses Fudge over his own family. And so it kind of becomes this, like, disownment of the family, and it's so sad. I just kept getting so angry about the Ministry of Magic, Umbridge, Percy, Fudge, Voldemort. Like, everything was just making me angry. Another reason this book took me forever to read was because the kids, they are 15. They are very angsty, which is very difficult to read. Angsty kids. Like, Harry was just yelling at everybody all the time. I mean, I do understand why Harry has been reacting the way he's been reacting in this book. Like, I get it. You feel like no one is on your side. Like, everyone is out to get you. You are also being physically tortured. And also, Voldemort is in your head, like, all the time. Like, I get it. It's very frustrating, especially at 15, to have to deal with those types of things. But still, it was just like, Harry, this is not the way to handle things. So yeah, so I definitely think that, like, J.K. Rowling did such a great job writing this book. I mean, she does a great job writing all the books. Like, her writing is so great. What usually takes authors like 2 pages to write, it'll take her 2 paragraphs. Like, she gets right to the point, but it's still so descriptive and so immersive. I just love this world, and I love reading about it, and I love this story. It's so good and so compelling. And even just, like, writing from a 15-year-old's perspective, like I said before, it was very angsty, but I do think it was very well done, because even though, like, I didn't understand, because, like, even though I didn't agree with a lot of his actions or, like, the way he was handling things, I still understood why he was doing it or saying it, or, you know, I just understood him, even though I didn't agree with it. So I think she did a fantastic job writing from a 15-year-old boy's perspective. And I also just have to say, this story, like, each book just gets more and more and more complex. I think that also just kind of goes with, like, he's growing older. He's a year older each book, so it is going to be more complex, and there is going to be a lot more information coming his way, and there is just going to be a lot more to the story, because obviously when you start off, you're 11, you're not going to know a lot of the world, you're not going to be able to think a lot about the world, and then compared to 15, where you really start thinking about those types of things. We also got, you know, he's starting to like girls. He's got the boy hormones going. Like, it's happening. But I also have to talk about my favorite characters of this book, because obviously you know my least favorites were Umbridge, Percy, and Fudge. Least favorite characters. My favorite characters in this book are Neville, mainly because we learned so much more about Neville that I didn't know before. And also, he finally gets to start being a part of the fighting. We see him fight in this book, and it's so cool. I love that, like, Neville is a part of it. My 2 other favorite characters were Fred and George. I mean, I always love Fred and George. Always do. But they're, like, way more pranksty in this book, especially because they're, like, pulling pranks against Umbridge, which I'm like, yes, because Umbridge freaking deserves it. But also, you see them kind of become businessmen. Like, they're not just pranksters and jokesters. Like, they are businessmen. Like, they're really starting their business in this book, their joke shop business. You kind of see them in a more mature light, but still being themselves, and I really enjoyed that about this book. I love Fred and George. Oh my god. There's just so much information that just, like, intensifies the story. Although I have to say, they didn't really explain the veil and what it was. I mean, I think I know what it is from the movie and then also the book. But I don't think they did a really great job explaining what exactly it is. So I'm hoping that maybe in, like, the next book or the 7th book, they'll, like, explain what it is. Because I don't think this did a very good job explaining the veil. If you read the book, you know what I mean. The veil that Sirius Black goes through. Don't want to talk about that. Anyway, yeah. So, let me get this a rating. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. So far, it's my least favorite of the Harry Potter books. But those are the books I read. I feel like I had a pretty decent reading month. I read more books that I liked than books I didn't like. So thank you guys for watching this video. I also have a movie wrap up as well as just my life wrap up for this month. And I hope to see you guys very soon with another video. Bye!